time to chat some hockey.
Shot score! North Dakota wins!
The best college hockey writer in the country is on deck.
North Dakota, champions of the college hockey world!
Here's Brad Schlossman.
All right, Schloss joins us to start hour 2. Now, I had a false start there when we went to break because I was questioning myself. It was Merrimack because there's another M hockey school in the news today because Mercyhurst announced they're dropping their hockey program. That's why I stopped myself. Like, no, they beat Merrimack last night. But Schloss, good morning. We got one less team playing hockey. Was that out of the blue on Mercyhurst, or is this expected?
I was out of the blue.
Yeah.
I mean, Mercyhurst's head coach of the last 38 years is in Sioux Falls, and I had a conversation with him 2 days ago about what the team looks like next year. He actually just retired, so he's moving on, or he was planning to, and they had already named the successor. But I was talking to him about their roster, and the way he certainly was talking about next year.
Wow.
So
Man.
as of 2 days ago, this did not seem to cross his radar unless he was playing very coy.
Well, and that it's under the blanket of, trying to adjust costs and all that, which is obviously you and I have gone down the bend on this, and we've talked about it ad nauseum over the last 5 years with rising costs for everything for Division I sports. You're going to see schools drop them. It's going to happen.
Yep, certainly it's a very difficult era for colleges to try to allocate money to the right spots for athletics.
Right. So just the first time UND winning a first-round game in 5 years. I talked about that off the top of the show. Let's just start with that, with just advancing. And I know none of this team has anything to do with 2021, but how big a deal was that to win and get in a chance to go to the Frozen Four tomorrow night?
Yeah, it's just, it's just kind of big to get over the hump and get the first one under their belts. I certainly don't think this team is, overly excited and say, okay, we're finished now and they're done. But, I think maybe more so for almost the fans. I mean, half this roster is new, so they know nothing about the fact that they haven't played there. But certainly the fans were able to have some fun. And, in 2021, they lost that regional final game in 5 overtimes, and then they come back a year later and lose in overtime, and then they lost that 1-goal game to Michigan. And it's just a really hard tournament because everybody is good in the tournament. And every step is a big step. And, we've seen 17 of the last 19 years of 4 seed has beaten a 1. And so it's not like you even go into this matchup. You're playing a Merrimack team that's won 16 games since November, won the Hockey East tournament. So there are really no games where you can just assume a certain team is going to win. So that's why every single game is really big if you can take one more step.
Real offshoot of that, how close were we to having a UND Augustana game in Sioux Falls had Merrimack lost?
Yeah, that was it.
Man.
Yeah, that was how close we were. Merrimack was playing UConn in Hockey East, and a lot of the other results in the championship games did go Augustana's way. Augie needed 3 games to go its way. Yeah. The other 2 did go their way, but the third one did not. So, we were 1 game away from having this be Augustana instead of Merrimack in this game.
That would have been something else for a scene last night. Yeah. Let's chat about the goalies. I thought both were fantastic. Plenty. You wrote plenty on Merrimack's goalie going in, but Spoonar has been awesome again all year. He has more. Do I have the stat right? Is he more shutouts than losses this year?
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
that's now
that's his 5th shutout, I believe, and he's lost 4 games. So anytime you have more shutouts than losses, that's a huge accomplishment. And yeah, he's been really good this season, and he's kind of just an interesting guy off the ice. He's very laid back. He's I don't think the big stage gets to him. I don't know if he knows he's on the big stage or not. Someone asked him about, if he's really excited to play in the NCAA tournament. And he had a comment that said something like, a year ago, I don't know what NCAA tournament is.
Yeah.
He said, now that I know, yeah, I'm excited, but he's just a really I asked him after he gave up 5 goals to Minnesota Duluth in his last outing, how does he come back? And he just said, I know I know my job is to play better than the other goalie. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, that's pretty simple. And last night he played better than the other goalie. And that's not to say Max Lundgren didn't play well.
Really
I thought he
good.
was great.
Yes. Yes.
He was real good. Early in the second, UND had a chance to put that game away. And UND was all over Merrimack and had tons of chances. And Max Lundgren was sensational. And then in the third, it was the Jan Spunar show because Merrimack came back with the huge push in the third and needed its goaltender to be really good, and he was.
Now the fact that they got through this game, and now I'm going to get to Quinnipiac here in a second because obviously there's some NCAA tournament history with the Bobcats. Describe atmosphere. We were talking off air. He had over 5,000 people. I would expect, I don't know if double's probably maybe too much, but there's going to be some more bodies driving down tomorrow to come see them play.
Yeah, well, one of the challenging parts about the regional setup with the day off, you got to take 2 days off of work to come for Thursday and Friday. And I think a lot of people said, you know what, if they make it to Saturday, I'll come down Saturday, work out the week and then head down. So I know they had a lot of ticket requests last night within the first hour of the game ending, and a lot of people that are planning to come down. So should be even more fans there for the regional final against Quinnipiac.
The game, how it was playing out, it's 1-0 late in the second. Did you ever get a sense that UND was like grabbing the sticks tighter because, hey, here we go again. It's a tight game. We can't score on this guy?
You know what? I think this team, as Dane Jackson has kind of said throughout the year, they're really comfortable in uncomfortable moments. And in these, they've played they've had this really great year where they've won a ton of games, but UND hasn't been blowing out teams every night. Most of these games are 1-goal games in the third period over and over again. These are close games that they find ways to win. So I actually feel that this team is used to those situations. They've been playing in these types of games for, 4 months now. And, I did feel there was a couple times when they overpassed on chances where it's like, just put it on net.
Yeah, yep.
The other thing right now, the ice is not good here.
I heard.
They some of the guys who played in the USHL before had said it's not always great here, but this now they take out the, put the new logos in and they redo the ice. And I don't think they really skated on it. Fargo has changed the way they do that. When they do the regional, they put in the ice like a week or 2 weeks early now. And the ice was way better for the Fargo regionals recently. And that was a huge change they made after, I think, the first time they hosted it. And they did not do that here. So the ice was really bad. And I think when you have bad ice, you don't overpass it. Don't overplay it. Sometimes get pucks on that. And I don't know if that was part of them thinking, this guy is going to stop everything he sees clean, or if they just were trying to make too many plays. I don't know. But there were times last night I felt, okay, they're overpassing some of these chances. You have traffic in front, put it on that.
Quinnipiac and UND have quite a history. Obviously, 2016 national championship. I know they played in Fargo the year prior at Shields. Am I missing another playoff or tournament game they played against one another? Is that it?
That's it. Yeah. And then they played non-conference games against each other, a couple of years ago.
So there's a history here. Obviously, not a shared one currently with all the amount of turnover. How good? They're always good, I know, Brad. But how talented is this Bobcats team that UND is going to see tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think they're more skilled and more offensive than a lot of their recent teams. I think some of their recent teams, they had a lot of really old defensemen that they just were impossible to get chances on. They were so good. And then they did have some guys that could really score. This group is more dynamic than the past groups. They maybe give up a little more chances than past groups did too. So they can play a high scoring game. They've got a handful of forwards that are just electric forwards though. Ethan Wittenbach's the leading scorer in the nation. He can score. And then, Vidicek and Varro, 2 other freshmen who are having great years. Mason Marcellus has been a star since he was in the USHL. Chris Pelosi is a guy who is a superstar for the Stampede here. You start listing all their roster guys and you're like, man, that forward group is really, really talented. I feel like, if UND's to win this game, they need to cause problems for Quinnipiac's D-core. And you know what, they're going to get, Quinnipiac's going to get their chances. They're going to make plays. And UND's got to play tight defensively, and Jan Spunar's got to continue what he's been doing.
They also, their coach's name is the best name. Rand Pecknold is the best name, a great hockey name out there. They won it a couple years ago. How much has that elevated that they're able to get better players as well now?
Yeah, for sure. And they've been to the NCAA tournament 7 years in a row. They have the longest streak of any team in the country right
think
now.
About that.
NCAA tournament. So I think when you see a team that's constantly in the mix, that's going to Frozen Fours, they've played in, 3 national title games in the last 13 years or 14 years. So I think when they're constantly in the mix like that, you have more guys when they call that are answering their calls. They've sent a lot of guys to the NHL recently, and all of that combined certainly gets you higher end players like a Wittenbach and a Verreau and a Pelosi, who a lot of teams would have loved to have.
Yesterday, as we look at the bracket here, Michigan State and Wisconsin won. Any surprises there for those games out of Massachusetts yesterday?
Well, the surprise to me was that UConn outshot Michigan State by 20. Like, they dominated that game. That's where I was coming. These number 4 seeds are really good teams, and anything can happen. And Trey Augustine, frankly, stole that game for Michigan the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
He had to be sensational there. Dartmouth had been playing really well. Wisconsin had not been playing well in the second half of the year. I guess momentum didn't matter. Wisconsin was the better team. The Badgers end up winning that game. And then here, Quinnipiac was the better team from the drop of the puck, I thought. Providence, nice little push there for a little bit in the third to make it interesting, but really the Bobcats, I thought, were real good yesterday.
For people that are going to watch today, Brad, which one of the 4 you say, okay, this is the one, sit down or have it on your tablet today. This is going to be the best game of the 4 today.
Which one isn't? I mean, I look at these games, and first of all, the first one this afternoon is Minnesota State and Western Michigan.
Yep.
That is going to be a battle. Minnesota State is really tough defensively. They just make it so hard to generate on. That is a 4 seed that nobody wanted to get. The number 1 seeds. They won the league regular season title, won the league playoff title. They can shut it down. Alex Tracy and Ned is sensational. That one's going to be a good game. If you like a lot of goals, that one might not be your game. So if you like goals, the game is the nightcap.
Okay.
Penn State and Minnesota Duluth. Penn State can score with any team in the country, and Penn State can give up goals with any team in the country. Like, they are going to score. They are going to allow chances. I don't know how, they play all offense. So
well, and I haven't watched McKenna yet on television. I want to see him. I want to just see how. I know he's good, but I want to see him play. I have not had a chance to watch him yet.
He's really dynamic.
Yeah.
He sees the puck or sees the ice really well. He can make plays all over the ice, and he's good. But like, they have Aiden Fink, who is a Hobie Baker finalist last year. They've got Matt DeMarsico, who's phenomenal. I think of Charlie Serrato, 2nd round guy, just a stalwart center for them. They've got so many weapons that they just can. I don't know how much they care to defend sometimes. They are going to outscore their problems. That's how they play. And they're going to play a Duluth team that can play a very structured game. The other thing, Penn State leads the nation in penalty minutes per game. Minnesota Duluth's power play number 2. Penn State cannot go to the box over and over. The Plants and Jason Chagabe and Ty Hansen will eat them up if that happens. That's a fascinating matchup, though. If you want goals and you want entertainment, watch the nightcap. Yeah. If you want a tough, physical brand of hockey, tune in early. You're going to see it with Minnesota State and Western.
2 last things for you. A lot was made. I don't know how much you know, but what you can share some light on Garrett Raboyne staying at Augustana. How real was the opportunity for him to coach the University of Minnesota, from what you know?
Yeah, I think it was very real. ran into Josh Morton last night here in Sioux Falls, the athletic director at Augustana, and he was a very happy man.
I bet.
Irvine is staying at Augie. He's done a very, very good job. Getting the new facility is huge for the program. That attracts recruits. Their goaltender just signed an NHL contract. And that's a big win for the Augustana program. And I think the level of recruits they'll get will continue to go up. They've got a lot of guys that play really hard, and they're terrific players. I think now you might see them get some guys with a few more goals on their sticks that can, change games.
All right, last thing for you here. I always open up the runway for you for your appeal to move the regionals out of go for it, man. I'll just set it up on a tee for you.
Yeah, I talked to some of the Eastern teams here.
Yeah.
Who had been pro keeping it the way it is, and it's not a problem as much out east, because everything is so close. It's an easy
correct
drive.
Yes.
The funny part is I hear the commentators talking about how UND has this game so close to home. I'm like, do you guys realize it's 4.5 hours away? That's so much further than any trip they make out east. What they think is long is 2 hours.
Correct.
I'm like, they can go to a game and come home at night for most of these. They're within an hour of a lot of these places, and that's not the case here. How many teams are within an hour of Worcester? A lot.
A ton. Yeah. Right.
So I don't think one of the coaches came up to me and said, coming out here has opened my eyes to what the West goes through. I think my mind might be changing now. He said, look at this. We've got us and Quinnipiac both playing 1,500 miles from home. He's like, that just, doesn't make sense. So I really think that, there is continued momentum to move it to campus sites. We'll see if we get to the finish line. There's a lot more people on board than there were 15 years ago when I started writing about this.
This should be named after you. I'm just going to tell you that. Whenever they enacted it, should be the Schlossman rule on that. Well, Quinnipiac and Providence are literally an hour from one another. Quinnipiac's in Connecticut. Providence, obviously, Rhode Island. Yeah. What are we doing? And they're playing in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that game should have been in Schneider Arena in Providence. It would have had a great crowd. Yes. The fans would have been excited. Got to see a great game.
Man.
Yeah. Instead, it's out here, and last night's game should have been at the Ralph.
Yeah,
you'd have had 12,000 people there. But
what do we think? What do we think tomorrow night then? Roughly, what do you think attendance wise will be for tomorrow night?
That's a great question. I'm fascinated to see it. Really fascinated to see how many new people come down. But it should be real good tomorrow night. It would be even better if it were in Grand Forks rather than 5 hours away.
Yeah,
or Fortnite, whatever it is. But yeah, it's someday.
But we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. It's great to see you, bud. I know you're a busy man. Thanks so much for doing this. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. We'll talk soon, all right?
Perfect. Thank you.
Brad Schlossman joins us each and every Friday to chat some UND hockey. Fighting Hawks and Quinnipiac. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock on ESPN2. They moved the start times around a little bit. Ben, if you would throw the bracket back up again, I appreciate it. Because that one game that Brad was talking about, the Penn State game, tonight is a 9 o'clock Eastern start. Penn State and Duluth are playing at 9 o'clock Eastern time, and that game's in Albany, New York. Again, what are we doing? Why is there a game starting at 9 o'clock Eastern time in New York? Because of television. I know my answer. I know the answer to the question, but why is the early game in Colorado? That doesn't make sense. Somebody make this make sense to me. I don't understand. Anyway, UND Quinnipiac tomorrow at 6. Michigan State and Wisconsin will play at 3:30 in Worcester, Mass. The winners of those games move on to the Frozen Four in Las Vegas. All right, we're overdue for a break. Let's get caught up here. We got a few emails to get to. Jack Noonan from Rosemount, Minnesota, coming up in about 15 minutes. Back on Hot Mic right after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com.